Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. All right, dear listener, have you ever been given incredibly good advice, but didn't follow it? I'm guessing that for most of us, the answer is a big yes. It may have been because we weren't ready to implement the advice. It may have also been because the advice came from someone else. The fact is, we tend to listen to ourselves more than we listen to others. With that in mind, how can someone from the outside be most helpful? One of the best answers is an approach called motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing has long informed how I work, and it is indeed an honor to host the co-creator of this scientifically validated approach to counseling. Dr. Stephen Rollnick is a giant in the field of psychology. Along with his colleague, Dr. Bill Miller, he co-created motivational interviewing, and it has gained international acclaim for its effectiveness in helping people change undesired behaviors. As you'll hear, it's a bit like a Jedi mind trick for the good. By listening deeply to a person, listening to their agenda, the helper can assist in figuring out what is true for the other person, and the person ends up being guided by their own truth. As you'll also hear, it's not just for counselors. It can be done by parents with their children and managers with people who report to them. In fact, my previous guest from episode number 126, African-American musician Darryl Davis, who helped over 200 men out of the KKK, uses a similar communication style. So listen in as Steve and I talk about motivational interviewing and how it can help you help people get in touch with their best agendas and find their true north. Dr. Stephen Rollnick, who has asked me to call him Steve, welcome to Super Psyched.
Thank you very much. It's honestly a delight to be with you. I'm a long way away. I'm in Geneva.
But you feel so close and proximal just based on your warmth. And I'm so personally and professionally grateful for all that you and your colleague, Dr. Miller, have been able to create. It has been an offering that has, from where I sit, infinite applications. Motivational interviewing has been one of the greatest technological advances in our field. And for sure, you have used much of your professional acumen to better psychology. So I can't thank you enough.
Oh, no, honestly, it's a pleasure. And it'll be interesting for me to understand why you're so enthusiastic about it.
Well, it will be abundantly evident to the listeners by the end of our time, and they will benefit from just hearing some of what motivational interviewing is, why it can help, and some basic nuggets on how to do it themselves. But before we even get into it, can you describe what motivational interviewing can do for people?
I think if people are wondering about changing, what it can do for them is free them up in a very safe conversational space to think aloud with you. And in thinking aloud with you, that freedom can release energy and motivation to change.
What could be better, given our social brains, to be able to think aloud with another human being in a non-judgmental, open space, and to put your cards on the table and say, let's take a look.
So what they experience is a sense of being looked after in a conversation so that they can talk about change. And as they talk about change and hear themselves speak about it, so we know from research and practice that they're more likely to change.
I'm thinking about this great moment in the HBO series that describes the life of John Adams, one of the founding fathers of the United States of America, and how he used to bludgeon people with the truth, and how much that was aversive to the listener. And his wife very wisely said, John, men wish to believe they've come to their own conclusions. And to some extent, that is one of the gifts, I believe, of motivational interviewing, is the idea that no one will listen to another person as much as they will listen to themselves.
Absolutely. So what you've described is a truth that we hold dear, that's not unique to motivational interviewing, that has influenced a lot of people over the centuries to say exactly that sort of thing. There was a 17th century polymath called Blaise Pascal, who said, people are better persuaded by the reasons they have themselves discovered than by those which come into the minds of others.
Amazing.
The basic principles and the energy that drives this kind of safe process is not new. So the experience of motivational interviewing is perhaps slightly enhanced by the way we've refined the skillful manner in which that conversation takes place. So we've taken these age-old ideas, not intentionally. We didn't start thinking, there's this age-old philosophy. What we did was we started wondering about what makes for a constructive conversation in our work. That's another story. And constructed this, was originally a method, and we constructed this method, gave it a name, and then refined and chiseled and pondered and wondered why it works, why it doesn't work. And over a period of 30, 40 years, it just expanded and grew. And I don't know what to say. And we decided from the beginning not to sell it or control it. We just decided, no, this is something we're learning from our clients in those days. So we're just going to give it away. We're not going to try and sell it. So it's something that it evolved over a period of decades.
Yes. And this was you and Dr. Miller together, collaborating, much like Bono and the Edge creating U2 and creating beautiful music somehow magically, or Lennon and McCartney, if you wish. Just before we even get into what motivational interviewing is, can you give us the backstory, just a little bit about you and your colleague and how the two of you made beautiful music together?
Yeah, total opposites. He grew up, I don't know, somewhere in Pennsylvania in a working class coal mining area, very deeply religious background and community. And I grew up the son of Russian Jewish immigrants into Cape Town, South Africa, which is where I grew up. And we had very different backgrounds and we've got very different temperaments. He's an introvert. I'm an extrovert, I suppose, but very similar experiences in the field we happen to be in. And by complete coincidence, one day we were in Sydney, Australia, both on visiting fellowships, taking some time out of our everyday lives. And we found ourselves in the office next door to each other. And that very first day, we decided to collaborate, and we've been friends and co-authors and lots more ever since.
That's absolutely brilliant. I love that. The two of you are poster children or grown-ups for the fact that having differences and collaborating can really create something beautiful. I was told that Orville and Wilbur Wright, the brothers who created the first aircraft that took flight, often were in conflict, and they would never attack each other personally, but they would attack each other's ideas. And ultimately, what caused the airplane to take flight was a literal and metaphoric reality that the propellers needed to go, one needed to go clockwise and the other needed to go counterclockwise in order for it to take flight. And it sounds like you and Dr. Miller have had something to that effect.
It's amazing. It's a beautiful story. And those two brothers probably trusted and respected each other enough to be hard on the problem.
Yes.
Soft person, suppose.
You nailed it. By the way, that's exactly the way I would describe it. Hard on the problem, soft on the person. And that's probably part of why motivational interviewing sticks so well. And one of the things I try to disabuse my teams with whom I work is that conflict is not bad. Conflict can be really good. And Temple Grandin, a brilliant woman who's on the autism spectrum, described the fact that had there been a more neurodiverse team with the Space Shuttle Columbia, somebody who had her version of autism which is a visual version, that they would not have had that problem. The space shuttle would not have exploded because anyone with her vision would have seen the problem ahead of time. And it sounds like the two of you have been able to do that to some extent.
It's very interesting. And obviously the word conflict can lead us to discuss what do we mean by that for people who are trying to change. And the essence of motivational interviewing is that you don't get into conflict with a person over change. Okay, which is very common. And I can tell you loads of examples in home life and sport and education. You help them come face to face with it in a very constructive and safe way. And so coming face to face with their conflict, with the decision conflict, is at the heart of change. It's not something we can avoid.
For sure. And when I think about bludgeoning somebody with the truth or bludgeoning somebody with your truth, it may be a half truth and it may lead the person to take on that truth and later on resent the person. I often describe this kind of process as being consent and resent. But let's get into maybe perhaps even motivational interviewing itself led the two of you to create motivational interviewing as you collaborate. But before we get into the fabric of it, what is motivational interviewing? If you were asked on the elevator, the proverbial elevator, what would you say?
20, 30 years ago, I would have mumbled and stumbled with psych. Maybe it's a conversation style for speaking to people about change, in which you encourage them to say why and how they change rather than rely on your wisdom.
And the thing that's so amazing about it, when I was a postdoc and learning it about behavior change and just the things that can get in the way. I mean, somehow you've infused Prochaska's model in terms of our readiness to change as being a really important thing. I often think about timing is everything. We're not ready to learn until we're ready to learn. We're not ready to change until we're ready to change. So it's a skillful conversation that allows a person to hear their own voice and to perhaps recognize their own internal dissonance around the topic itself and let that be the guiding light as they decide to change or not to change, as I see it. Does that seem fairly on point?
It's exactly right. And when you listen to a conversation that's fueled by motivational interviewing, you'll notice a couple of things. One is that it is not fast-paced, rat-a-tat-tat. If you think about music, okay, the musicality of it has a particular quality, and it's not fast-paced. The other is that it sounds a very normal conversation.
Totally.
It doesn't sound like a clever conversation driven by a psychotherapist who is using complex ideas. It's a bit like, I heard this said of the most famous soccer player in Europe. I know I'm speaking from Europe. Johan Cruyff, who invented a whole new way of playing football. He was asked a simple question like the one you asked me. So what is football? And he said, football is a very simple game. Playing simple football is very difficult to do. So something that is simple can also require considerable skill, which is what we can see most visibly and emotively in sport. It's apparently simple what they do, but what goes into it is practice and reflective conversations with others and resilience and really learning about how to do the simple thing really well. So when you listen to a conversation that's driven by motivational interviewing, it sounds super normal and easy, and it is. But I reckon that over the years, as I've got a little bit better at it, what I've realized is that it's what I'm not doing that is as important as what I am doing. And
elaborate on that. That's absolutely imperative. Can you describe more about what you're not doing? It's almost like the space between notes in music. What you're not doing is as important as what you are doing. Can you explain that more?
Well, the flip side of not rushing is it's reasonably steadily paced, and there's breathing space for both people to wonder. Breathing space for you as the person who's helping someone else, because there is this role distinction in motivational interviewing. One person is helping another person to change. Breathing space for you to be aware of how you're feeling, to be aware of and very curious about what it is about this person that they're experiencing, which is the origin of empathy. And awareness of triggers that might prompt you to solve the problem for them.
Right.
Solving the problem for someone else is a topic I can speak to a lot, because last week I was in an elite soccer club, and boy, oh boy, just as at the side of their practice ground, so in a doctor's office, so in a teacher's classroom, and so in my home, there is this inclination to see a problem and fix it for someone. Okay, that's what you won't be doing. But I came up with the phrase called the righting reflex, or if you like, the fixing reflex, which has us see problem, we automatically fix it for someone. And if they're in a state of conflict, uncertainty, or ambivalence, we've worked out exactly what happens when you try and do that. But basically, you don't do that because you're less likely to promote change if you solve a problem for someone, if they're uncertain about it. So you don't fix it. You don't rush. You don't label or judge the person. You don't see them as someone who's got things wrong with them. These are all, and we can go down and explore these. If you like, think about lenses that you wear. Okay?
Yes.
Classic psychotherapist, teacher, sports coach, parent trap that people fall into is what I call the role of the deficit detective. So my job is to wear these lenses where I'm looking for what's wrong because I'm going to put it right. And you don't wear those lenses if you're using motivational interviewing. And you and I can have a light-hearted conversation about it. But on the very serious side, if you look into the world of mental health treatment, for example, what you find is that people are labeled and judged as having things wrong with them, and labels are assigned to them that depress growth and change with phenomenal consequences. And in healthcare, for example, this labeling of people with problems can actually cause harm. So that's something we can talk about. There's no field called harmology, but I wish there was. Okay.
Harmology.
Harmology, man. You know,
I love it.
The study of how unintended harm can result from talking to people in certain ways. So when Bill Miller and I started this, okay, we were well aware of what not to do because we'd had the most dreadful experiences, in this case, in addiction treatment, which I can tell you about. I don't mind telling you about them. But there were dreadful experiences of people being labeled, judged, confronted, and the consequences were serious and harm was caused. So we were well aware when we started motivational interviewing of putting on a different set of lenses, not ones that look at what's wrong with people, but ones that look at their strengths. And we were well aware of what not to do, which I've tried to articulate.
You have articulated it so well. And you've also described kind of the difference between being clever versus being helpful, and the differences between being right versus helping the person decide what's right in their own words and to their own agenda. And I love the idea of countering the role of the deficit detective and harmology that it can incur. You know, what I love about this, Steve, is that I do, to some extent, use this with my own children. And I know that managers in tech or business could use this to great effect. It takes more patience. It takes more skill. I can hardly think of a context in which this skill, I call it the Obi-Wan Kenobi skill, this Jedi skill. I can't think of a single place where it wouldn't be helpful. It's really two people sitting down on the beach, having a conversation about something that's hard, something that one of the people is ambivalent about and knows on some level that there's light on the other side of it. But boy, it does seem like an impossible go to get there. And there is something so beautiful and so deeply human about this process that I think contributes to its effectiveness.
Yeah, you're right. It does have that kind of applicability. It does require a degree of detachment and emotional regulation. So it becomes more difficult to use it at home because you get worked up and emotions are flying around. And also, it's their outcome. It's their choice about what they do. And it's their growth and development that counts. So, for example, if I don't like the fact that his room is untidy, I can't start thinking, oh, well, I'll use motivational interviewing on him to get him to tidy his room, because this is my aspiration, not his. Okay? And I'm likely to be emotionally quite unregulated when I start the process because I'm really irritated by his room being dirty. So motivational interviewing isn't something that you do to or on someone. It's something you do with them on their behalf that is aligned with their heart, their values, and their aspirations, not yours.
It's not manipulation. It is digging for the gold.
You got it.
I'm wondering, for the statistically inclined, what are some of the stats that support the efficacy of this intervention in its broad context of use?
Look, it's been studied a lot. The traditional method that the researchers use is the randomized controlled trial, where some people get it and some people don't. This has been studied in over 2,000 randomized controlled trials.
Unbelievable.
That is probably more randomized controlled trials than any.
Oh my gosh, I know that. Yeah, it's a staggering number, Steve.
Staggering. I think it's an expression of the hunger to understand how come there is this way of helping people to change. There's about 10% of those studies of the researchers looked at the process, recordings of conversations, counting how many times someone says this kind of statement as opposed to that kind of statement. And I think the bottom line from those process studies is that the more you free someone up to say for themselves why they're going to change, the more they do change. But it can happen in therapy sessions, or it can happen in 2-minute accident and emergency unit conversations. It's not something that has to take a lot of time.
So I'm wondering if we could do a 2-minute drill where I describe to you, Steve, I know unequivocally that getting up and seeing the morning sun will help set my circadian rhythm. And yet every ounce of my being doesn't want to do it. And I also know it will help my sleep. I know I've done it before I had children, but I'm absolutely unwilling to do what I know I need to do, which is get out and see the morning sun.
Something that seems as simple as that, yet somehow it's not happening for you.
It's not happening. I'm not doing it.
You're not doing it. And yet there's a part of you that wants to.
Absolutely. And yet, my God, Steve, I mean, I'm tired in the morning. It's really cold outside right now. It's winter. I know it's California, but for me, I've got very thin blood because I am a Californian. And every sleep specialist with whom I've spoken in conversation has told me that's pretty much one of the number one ideas in terms of solving any sleep issues is facing the morning sun. And yet, man, I'm not doing it.
So you don't need to persuading about why you want to do it. It's just this puzzle, like you don't know what's stopping you.
I think it's the discomfort and just the desire to cocoon first thing in the morning, doing something I know is contraindicated, getting on my device. Whereas I could take my dog Rafi for a nice little walk, get a little time with him, get some sun, and set my circadian rhythm. I know I'd be more energetic later on.
So there are some comforting and nice things that go on if you just stay in bed and go on media, et cetera, et cetera.
You got it. Oh, it's so lovely. And it's just like, okay, I'm just nurturing myself in the morning before I get out. There's just something getting in the way. It's as simple as that. And it's stupid. There's a part of me that's just like, come on, dude, get over yourself and just get your butt out the door. And I know the photons, I know the 5 to 10,000 lux that I would receive from the morning sun would be spectacularly beneficial.
Yeah. What's going to happen to make you go? What needs to happen?
Great question. What I think needs to happen, I mean, besides something calamitous, which I don't want to happen because something calamitous could transpire, I suppose. But what needs to happen, maybe I could set myself just with my morning alarm, get your butt out the door. You'll love it. A little love letter to my future self every night, just a little text or something like that. Just reminding myself, you will be resistant. This will be good, but it will be in my voice.
It'll be in your voice at a time that you choose in a way that makes sense to you.
Yes.
And that's going to happen when it's going to happen for you. you're not sure when or how that's going to happen, are you?
You got that right, man. And yet I also know it would be so good on so many levels to get my blood moving, a little time with my dog, get that oxytocin hit that I get from just hanging out with him because he's so lovely. And why not? I could get 15 minutes of a podcast or something like that. It could be great.
And it's not going to happen just by being clever and finding this or that thing. It's going to be something that comes from your heart, isn't it?
Yeah. And I do believe that the other benefit, as you say, my heart, I immediately thought of the 3 people in my home who I adore. I think that all 3 of them would be beneficiaries. I think it would be a mood lift that cannot be brought on by caffeine. I think I would greet my family with far more love in the morning. I'm not a morning person, and I am a loving even in the morning, but I think I'd be more loving and certainly more authentically so.
Be able to find a better balance.
Right. And to your earlier point, I think I would see more balance, as you said, and more light. Quite literally, I'd be seeing 5,000 to 10,000 lux of light.
We were talking about that earlier.
We were. So it's a lovely callback and coincidence.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, should we stop there?
We should stop there. Thank you so much. It's almost like you're acting as a professional organizer, going through my closet, which is a mess, and saying, where should this go? Where might this go? Where would you like it to go?
Yeah. I felt at the time we could easily fall into the trap, which I have plenty times. And I bet you know it as well, which is, that's a good idea. Well, why didn't you try that? When actually, this is not just about setting a reminder on your phone. There's something I feel deeper down inside you that's going to be needed to make this change. And I felt very reluctant to follow that idea. Oh, that's good. Falling into the trap of being a cheerleader of a bright idea.
Yeah.
I don't get the impression from you that's what's going to be helpful. Someone like me saying, that's a great idea, Adam. Tell me how you think that'll work. You say, what will you do, Adam? You'll set something on your phone. You'll go, I'll set something on my phone. It's like running ahead of where your heart is. It is something a bit deeper inside you that needs to be fired up. Anyway, there you go. That was just my reaction, man.
Absolutely. And I just need to speak to that because there's something so powerful. I mean, the research is showing that loneliness is so toxic. And one of the things that motivational interviewing provides is a sense of companionship.
Correct. Yeah.
And you're right next to me with a shovel. You're digging away. We're looking for that gold. We're trying to find it. And you're not going ahead of me. You're staying right alongside me, not ahead of me, not behind me, but right next to me. And there's an old saying, don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Just walk beside me and be my friend.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing.
Yeah. It's possible that if we'd carried on chatting, that would have released you to sort of develop a new perspective on this. But the wisdom about that new perspective is inside you, not me.
Yes.
Okay. So I just raise a question, which I'm sincerely and genuinely curious about with this, that there's something missing here. There's something in your heart that's not quite in this. And it's not going to be cleverness that solves it. Now, I might be wrong, but it's just something we're looking at. And my only conviction is that the answer's inside you, not me.
And what a lovely and elegant way of phrasing it, by addressing my heart.
Yeah, I mean, because we know that we're talking about the well-being of your heart organ as well, aren't we?
Yeah, both my symbolic heart and my literal heart are the likely recipients of these healthful practices. Stephen, as we're kind of winding down, I'm wondering, is there anything I should have asked but haven't yet asked?
You haven't asked about the skills involved, but I think that's for another discussion.
Then maybe I'll ask this.
Yeah.
Before I ask my final question, Steve, and I can't tell you how grateful I am. How can people learn the skills that they might need to become proficient in this language, perhaps motivational interviewing as a second language?
I would say watch the behavior of a brilliant mother, parent, sports coach who's able to guide rather than instruct. So these skills are out there. They are out there. What we've done is refined them. But there's loads of resources. I've been involved in books for healthcare people, for sports people, school teachers. And it's a journey, and it doesn't suit everyone. And it's not the only way to speak to people about change. There's other ways that can sometimes be very effective, and they're not consistent with motivational interviewing. So this is not a panacea. It is a journey, and the most helpful starting point for this journey is the capacity to listen curiously and the technical skill of showing that by making statements rather than asking questions. So if you like, that's all I'll say about the technical side. You have that capacity to empathize with someone. It's a journey. You can learn it. And I think in this conversation, we've highlighted some of the signposts and warning signs on the journey of what you don't do.
You know, it's interesting. When I was getting my master's degree over at Santa Clara University before my doctorate, Dr. Dale Larson gave us an assignment to engage in a therapy session without asking a single question. And we needed to record it, and we needed to transcribe it to demonstrate that we were able to do this, something that seemed quite impossible at the time. But to your point, the ability to just reflect, to really engage in that empathy, which is just so powerful and seems to go into every really good form of therapy. And to your point earlier, there is no one therapy for everything, and there's no one therapist for everyone. It's very much a chemical combo between the two people as well as the therapeutic style. So I really appreciate your recognizing that fact. I'm going to go into my final magical question, Steve. So if you had the capacities perhaps of a Dumbledore, a wizard, you were conferred some magical skills to give everyone an insight or perhaps a skill that would be the betterment of the individual and society at large, what might that skill or insight be? And how do you imagine it would help the individual and perhaps society at large?
It wouldn't be wave that wand and have everyone practicing motivational interviewing. It would be to take some of the wisdom of motivational interviewing and to transform it into how people are given information, feedback, and instruction. It would be to give people a simple framework, and actually I think we've developed one, for improving the way they coach, the way they give people information in employment environments, the way they parent, and the way they give feedback and instruction to people. Because this is an art form, and it's done very poorly in most scenarios I come across. And there's this most wonderful potential for it to be this activity of giving information, instruction, feedback, advice to be transformed in a way that is really helpful to people. So that would be my magic wand.
Steve, to that point, just to go a little further, what would be some of the hallmarks of doing this well? What would be some of the things that people would keep in mind as they're doing what you're describing so that they could do it to the betterment of the recipient?
Before you give information, connect with the person and clarify what their interest is in the information that you're about to give them, what they know and don't know, connect with them. And then give them the information in a manner that is modest and autonomy enhancing and opens up for them the freedom to take that in whatever way they want to. And having given them the information, spend a little bit of time asking them what sense they make of it and what the implications are.
I love the way you said that. Just kind of show them you know them, recognize their freedom, and then debrief. Steve, this has been awesome. I am so grateful to you. I believe that so many places, whether it's clinical settings, whether it's on the football field where you're serving in England, or whether it's in companies, or whether it's in parenting, so many places are the beneficiaries of yours and Bill's hard work and the harmony that the two of you have created in spite of your differences. I can't thank you enough for sharing your wisdom with my listeners. This has been a blast.
Honestly, Adam, it's been a pleasure across so many thousands of miles, and thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. I've been a fan for years. This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.